Are you making videos to bless others, or is it just all about you?
Welcome to the Vlogpastors Podcast, a podcast all about the stories and strategies of sharing God's love in the digital world. Now, here are two pastors that love to put a camera in their face and walk around in public. They are the Michael and Dwight of digital ministry, Jarrod Brown and Joshua Verwers.
That's right, I am Joshua Verwers.
And I'm Jarrod Brown, and this is episode 62.
And whether you are catching us on an audio replay or watching the video, we just want to thank you so much for being here.
And if you want to help shape the conversation, come hang out with us every Wednesday, 10:30. You can get in the comments and change the course of where this goes.
That's right. And usually we do these things where we have you guys, the audience, that are actually submitting some questions for us on what we're going to talk about, what we're going to discuss. However, today we're going to discuss what I want to discuss. Why?
You hijacked it.
Because I've hijacked it, and it has been like I hijacked our own show because I have been challenged. And I'm not entirely convinced that it is in a positive way, but I have been challenged by Ryan Trahan and what he is calling and coining, at least for his mission moving forward, at least this year with his YouTube channel, as redemptive work. And so I want to kind of set some of the stage about this. And I figured as we get ready to set this stage, here's how this has been playing out in me. And I have been studying this. Like, Jarrod, I know you and we saw his penny challenge that he did. Was that back in June?
I believe so.
I think it was in June, where he did the penny series. And if you don't know what the penny series was, it was Ryan Trahan trying to deliver a penny from California to, North Carolina to Mr. Beast. Why? Because the only thing that Mr. Beast doesn't have is a penny. Like, he's got millions of dollars. He's got all the Benjamins in the world. He just does not have a penny. And what is it, next year? The pennies are going extinct or something, he said.
Right.
However, below that, it wasn't just the goal of delivering the penny. It was a donation. As he's traveling across, every single penny that was donated was going to go to help feed those in need. So it was with Feeding America that he was doing this. And I believe it was, how many million meals did they raise? Like 10 million or something like that?
It was something just absolutely absurd. But the part that got me was that he had to survive all of his travel, all of his meals. Everything had to come from what he raised from a penny. And every so often, somebody could reset him back. And he made these preposterous goals of, like, if I raise 50,000, it'll be a great reset. And whatever city I'm in, wherever I'm at in my journey, I will have to reset to a penny and start over. And he was reset multiple times, making it that much more grand of a show.
Yeah, it was enjoyable. It was fun to watch. And as he talks about it, it had a redemptive element into it. And in that, what I wanted to kind of just touch base on and show is I've looked into this. Like, I've researched it. I saw what he was doing. I've listened to multiple podcasts, and I've read articles with interviews that he's done. So I've heard him talk about this, and I want to just kind of let's just feature his words. Like, here's what Ryan Trahan himself is saying about this. And so I will wind up adding these links down in the description below, in the show notes, in the order of service, and whatever we're going to call it. It will be down there, but I want to kind of take us through, and we're going to start here with the very first one is actually from YouTube's blog themselves. And they said, what's Ryan Trahan's secret to going viral? And if I scroll down here on this article, there's a section here that they said, as you evolve, both as a person, as a creator with increasingly growing audience, how do you maintain your authenticity through the pressure to make and put out more content? And he says here, this year we had a great breakthrough. We realized that it's very easy to do exploitative work, but the idea that we could potentially do redemptive work in which we're actually creating restoration in our viewers' lives rather than trying to exploit them to stay watching for a few more seconds got us really excited. And we are absolutely enthralled with the idea of making the next video transformative for the viewer. Fast forward to an interview he did with Colin and Samir, and we'll pick up. Just listen to this one here real quick.
So. Why do you think at that scale people are reacting to your content? Like 20 million people are reacting to your content like that. Like, what do you think are the ingredients that allow it to reach that many people?
It's honestly insane. I can't like sit here and act like I know what I'm doing fully. So sure. I just say this, and I hope everyone takes it with a grain of salt, but I think that our focus is, our motto for this year is redemptive work. And basically what that means is, like creating restoration in people's lives rather than essentially trying to get views to make profit. And there's exploitative work and there's redemptive work. And I feel like YouTube inherently is exploitative.
Yeah.
Like retention, you can exploit that. You can exploit people's tendencies to stay if you do this and that, or you can make the storyline something that is literally actively energizing them and making them think about what their perspectives are and adding to their lives. And so it's crazy how you can have the same outcome with the two. I think that's what it is.
So that was from the Colin and Samir YouTube channel where they did that. Another one he did was, this is off of Anthony Padilla, and it's I Spent a Day with Ryan Trahan. This one, he actually kind of breaks this down a little bit deeper. Anthony Padilla actually says this is, Ryan Trahan's TED Talk. And so if you haven't heard that one, here's this real quick.
This is basically the framework we developed. It's redemptive work versus exploitative work. And if you look at the what, how, why, you're basically seeing that the what of exploitative work, which is, in my opinion, the idea of like retention hacking, like not making a good video, just doing something that's good enough for people to click on it, and then hopefully making an experience that's good enough to where they watch the whole thing so you make money.
Goal is numbers, views, money.
Redemptive work, the difference is what we build is we create for restoration. The whole goal of the video is different. It's not for rewards, profit, it's for restoration in the consumer. And so the idea is totally shifted from how do I strive? How do I like get control? And it's such a loving, like, it's almost like a maternal approach to work. It was so beautiful to me. And finally, the why. This is like the coolest to me. So the exploitative version of doing anything, we win by force. It doesn't matter what it takes. Doesn't matter who gets hurt in the process. And so to me, that's just like a level of even treating your team right, and even like treating the people around you right that help you make what you make. Because the redemptive version of that is we serve for the greater good. The idea of like being able to serve for the greater good is so much more empowering than trying to win by force.
It seems.
And then we'll wrap this up with, this is one of the most recent ones. It was just released a couple days ago. And this is from the Editing Podcast. And Hayden Hillier-Smith, and I can't remember the other guy's name off the top of my head. And this
is the editor guy?
The other editor. Yeah. So Hayden Hillier-Smith on the right here on the screen. That's the editor for Logan Paul. And then the one on the left, I can't remember, Jordan Orm or something like that. And he does a lot of like music video editing and stuff. And so they were meeting Ryan Trahan and his editor and doing this interview. And here's a section where they talk about doing redemptive work with him.
I think the biggest thing I've also realized, though, that it's kind of like a caveat to redemptive work is like, I've realized what I'm personally passionate about isn't necessarily just creating art, but it's like creating art with strategy. And I think that that's kind of like the asterisk to redemptive work is like part of redemptive work is giving a gift that people will enjoy. And I think that part of that is like on YouTube, in terms of YouTube's perspective, is like having good packaging, creating a video with a topic that is interesting to people. Just like if your best friend loves turtles and you want to give them a gift, you probably need to give them a gift relating to turtles, not just like some like oil rigs. I don't know. But it's crazy because like creating art with strategy is different from just creating art for it, almost selfishly. And so the whole point of redemptive work is to not be selfish with what you create. And so that's why we're still able to kind of create like broadly appealing content. I think is like why we're still thinking about the masses in that way.
So I loved what he was saying in these, and each one of these different, interviews and podcasts that he had. I think the thing that I enjoyed with them, he's talking about the same topic. Like it's the redemptive work. This was, and even in that one, which I would recommend, that editing podcast episode, if you get a chance, listen to that. It's on all of the different platforms. You can watch it on YouTube. That one was probably the most in-depth one. And here's where I was saying it started. I wasn't sure how this is actually affecting me in a good way or a bad way, because it was so challenging that it got me thinking, and then it got me stuck. But I think there might have been a breakthrough. We will see. Time will tell. The thing that I loved about this, because just the word redemption, like redemptive work for Christians, like that's a dog whistle. That's something that we hear, but we hear it on a much deeper level, because every time I hear redemptive work, my mind instantly goes to the cross. Like the redemptive work of Jesus Christ. Like that's what I think of. And as vloggers, pastors, that's kind of why we do what we're doing. But when I see somebody who's not got the same calling that we had for the work we do, and yet he's doing it better, it's just like, are we missing something? And that's where it becomes challenging. But I wanted to lay that out there just so we can talk, really about that redemptive element that he's saying, where he's at that last podcast, he talks about it. The point of redemptive work is not selfish. So it's not about me. It's about others. And yes, and amen. Like as Christian YouTubers, video creators, like that's what we should be doing. It shouldn't be about us or all about us. But that's where it's become challenging, because I've heard myself say many times, I'm making these for me. So that's where it does become a little bit of a challenge. Before I break down and we start talking about kind of the ins and outs of these, and I want to reach back and reference these and like some highlights that I jotted a note on. I want to talk about the overall aspect of he came out swinging with this 30-day daily vlog using the redemptive work framework that he had, where this is not going to be exploitative. It's not going to be about the views. It's not going to be about the money that we make. It's going to be about feeding America. Like that was the goal. Let's see if we can take this platform and help actually serve a valid need. You watched it, Jarrod. How'd it set with you as you were watching it? How has it inspired you? What are your thoughts on that? What you got?
I've got puppies today, so I'm trying to stay muted. We just have to bear with me. I can't say as I've seen the series. It doesn't ring a bell.
No clue on it.
Yeah. No, we've studied this series.
Yeah.
We've picked it apart. I didn't catch any. I saw Colin and Samir's podcast, I think somewhere around the airing of all this that was going on, because I really got into Ryan Trahan. Hadn't really enjoyed his stuff previous to the series.
Right.
There were some one-offs that caught my attention that ended up in my feed, I think because YouTube was pushing it out to the masses. The quiet room, how long can you stay in there, that kind of thing. And they were interesting, but it wasn't not my style of creator. But something shifted and caught my attention in the Penny to Mr. Beast, and I was ravenous about his content. And to me, I want to highlight that moment for anybody out there, that like I think that's that intangible God moment stuff,
Yeah.
where you're like, oh, I identify something's changed. This content, like he's saying, his goal was to produce something and inspire something. And that's why I've been saying for the last couple of weeks, I haven't had like a frame of reference that he's now a believer and all this stuff. But it's like, it's having an effect on me. It is inspiring me so much that I'm going to make a series of my own type of a thing that is very similar. I think it's a good kick in the pants for you and I, and for creators like us who have been at it for a while. There is a constant and nagging void, ones at every time.
Right.
And so whenever you produce a 5 out of 10 video, there's just something relentless about that goes, okay, well, we'll try harder next time. Which, when in the Christian faith, am I going to strap this thing on my back, and if I just try a little bit harder, we're going to push on through the wall type of a deal? No, this is a grace game of like just sharing the goodness of God and what he has done and the walls that he's knocked down in front of us. And I think Ryan, the reason, if we want to get to a point of it, why he is doing so well and why he has such an echo, in society is because he is modeling that. Yes, he
Yeah.
put his head down for a period of time and he built up an audience, and that is a piece of it. But his radical moment is that Penny to Mr. Beast thing, that inflection where he gains 10 million subscribers
Yeah.
in a month is where he switches and he changes the game from working really hard and trying to figure out how to game the system and putting your nose to the grindstone and hustle to you're not going to believe this. And then we went over here and we're going to try and take this penny over there, and then this happened and then this happened, and then constantly moving towards the greater redemptive value of this video of we met a guy. And he's smart because even in Colin and Samir, they're kind of getting around this. It's like, it's about the people. It's about the people. Well, I didn't know he had swapped teams,
Right.
It's about the people, of course, because he's a believer. It's now all about the people. It's all about Jesus and the people.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and when you start to hear that aspect of him sharing, his faith, where he was a couple years ago being extremely cynical, and even in that agnostic type environment, but now like having that deep relationship with Jesus and how that is influencing everything in his life, and he's looking at it and he's thinking, I have to give back. Like, I have this platform, I have this reach, I have these resources, I have these giftings. What can I do to actually bless others? To, as he talks about it, gifting to others. It's interesting to see. It's challenging in a way, because I think, at least for me, that's kind of the initial heart of me even getting on YouTube. It was like, I want to be able to provide value. But then it was trying to figure out, how do I provide value? How do I encourage people? How can I bless them in some way through video while still remaining authentic and genuine? Because that was the one thing that I really, focused on. And you can see it. Like, I've done the talking head videos, and that's not me. Like, that's not me. I'm not a suit and tie preacher. I'm not. Not to say that that's good or bad. It's just different. And that's because of that being who I am and how I kind of approach things. It got me thinking, okay, so if that's how I'm going to be doing this, how do I need to do this? Like, I want to encourage people. I want to bless people, but how am I going to do this in such a way that works, and it actually is effective? Because it's not just, I want to, throw things in the air. I mean, if all it was is just taking something and throwing it in the air, and I did that in my pastoral gig, I would just show up and I would just read the Bible, and that's it. And saying it'll just stand on its own. I don't need to give you any explanation on it. If you can't understand it, that's on you. Well, hey, the world definitely needs some more of just the unfiltered word. They just need the pure word.
Your channel proves it.
Yeah.
I know you're goofing and you're going to the counterpoint of it, but like, there's such a need for it.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like the world is not asking for me just to. They don't want to see just me every day showing, hey. So I woke up this morning and I put on my pants. Yes, it was one leg at a time. I haven't figured out how to put both on simultaneously yet. I brushed my teeth.
I'm enthralled already.
Because it's a weekday. I didn't do my hair. I threw on a hat and I drove. And then I came back and just a bunch of that stuff. Like, that's not what the world needs. They need more and they want more. Like, they're looking, yes, for encouragement. They're wanting, like, for me as a vlog pastor, I think the world needs to see Christian leaders living authentic lives in Christ. And that means they need to be able to see their successes and their failures. And at least in my circles of Christianity, it's all been about show the success, but don't talk about the failures. Because if you talk about the failures, the sheep are going to eat you up. And it's like, no, like that's not me, and that's not how it is. And that's not what I needed. And I know that there are millions out there in the world that need what I needed. And I needed somebody to be real, somebody to say, yeah, you're not alone. Like, we've all fallen, and we've all made mistakes, and we're going to continue to make mistakes. It's not about the mistake. It's about what you do after the mistake. And that's the thing, like, I needed to do. But if I'm going to do that, how do I do that in a good way? And especially when you're on this platform of YouTube where it's all about the views. Like you're talking about this, the rankings that you see every time you upload. Here's what it is. And yes, we're playing that comparison game even with ourselves. It's like, is that what we should be doing? If it's redemptive work, like if we're truly trying to do redemptive work, and Ryan lays this out here in that, that Colin and Samir, he talks about that it's about creating restoration, not just about views for profit. And even if we're not monetized, we're still trying to get views. And there's a lot of Christians out there that are, well, we got to get the views, because once we get the views, then we can be monetized, and then we can start to do this. And I get the whole workman's worthy of the hire. And yes, those who minister the word should be able to live off of that and not muzzling the ox, treading out the grain, throw all the scriptures we want. Yeah, we should be paid for our work. That's just common sense. But it's not about the income. It's about the impact. There's some alliteration. And what is that impact? That's the difference, I think, between the restorative and the redemptive and the exploitative. And so I looked at Ryan's videos, and like, you can look at his videos last year, look at his videos this year. There is a clear difference in what he was doing. Like, he was playing the YouTube game and he was at the top of the game. He's creating a big, huge, peak in his channel. But this one, and he talks about this, it went bonkers. Like, he stopped focusing on the views and wound up getting even more views. He stopped focusing on trying to gain subscribers and gained even more subscribers. It wasn't about what he could get. It was about what he could give. And that's, hey, as Christians, we know it's more blessed to give than receive. But are we doing that as content creators? Is that our focus? Or are we falling into that exploitative trap because everybody else is doing it? Why not?
Listen, I didn't know today was going to be confession time, okay? If you're going to... I feel like a trap was laid. No, this is so good. It is. It's so good. Particularly, I hope everyone's getting a benefit out of this, but I feel incredibly challenged just in the last week or so, because I've been asking the Lord some private questions concerning, like, the role of church and and ministry in general on YouTube, that kind of stuff. It's like, what is the point to some of this stuff? And he's been stripping away some of those layers and getting down to the nitty gritty of what this is all about. And I am becoming more and more aware, as he's illuminating my mind, that we've built a bunch of stuff on top of it, and it's kind of become the thing. And the thing, I could use YouTube as an illustration. The views, in order to make the money, in order to make the videos, in order to make the views, in order to make the money, in order to make the videos, in order to make the money, to make the views, in order to get more reach and influence, so that you can eventually, one day down the road, magnify the name of Jesus. It's like, oh, we've missed this entirely.
Yeah. And
so this simplicity of, I want to make redemptive work, like you're saying, that's why we got on to this platform.
Yeah.
And as confession in this last 30 days, watching, making the videos and watching the results of those videos and the expectations you may have or not have in your mind, it's like, it's been a refining process, because it is so much is about, did this one get enough exposure that it doesn't kill the series for the next one? Are this many people watching it? Did that video do as good as the day before? Are we trending up? Are we trending down? What are the comments? Are the people responding? It's like, whoa. The entire series that I'm making is built around finding God and ripping back the veil of what we would normally keep relatively private and just letting him demonstrate himself. And I'm hoping that the benefit is there in and of itself. And it's like, the rest of it is is nonsense in a way. It's a distraction. Anyway, I'm noticing the same thing. The church has done the same thing.
Yep.
And so I'm extremely raw and grateful that you brought me on YouTube for a flogging. So
Live. Hey, we're gonna get into me getting raked over the coals here in just a second too. I'm saving my own verbal tongue lashing for here in just a bit. No, I mean, and I get what you say, and yet this isn't just us. Like, I even sit there and I think, and we've talked about the difference between ministry and marketing when it comes to online stuff. You know, there's digital marketing and then there's digital ministry. Digital marketing is all about trying to sell something, where digital ministry is all about serving. And I think there's a parallel in here, which then makes me think, okay, is digital marketing, or can digital marketing be exploitative even if done by the church? And you think with most digital marketing, when churches are doing it, it's not about, here, let me go to where you're at and serve your needs. It's about, here, let me go where you're at and tell you why you need to come be where we're at, so then we can try to serve you, but it's got to be on our terms. Whereas digital ministry is like, no, I'm just going to go where the people are at and I'm going to serve them right where they're at. And so there is a big difference. And I think that, yes, it can be marketing our churches just to sell our church, just to get the butts in seats, is a lot like just to promote our YouTube channel, just to get people to view and subscribe. And we're going to claim that that's all to be able to serve them and to serve the greater good. And I think there is a truth in there. I don't think it's the whole truth and nothing but the truth. I think we've mixed it, and I think we've then muddied it a little bit. And yet that's not to say that we don't want the views, because obviously we want to have the biggest impact we possibly can for the kingdom of God. That means more people are going to have to watch, more people are going to have to subscribe, more people are going to have to comment, share, follow along, all of these things. At the heart of the issue is our heart. Why are we doing what we're doing?
right.
And I think just like I think there's a discernment that people can see. Those who are looking, like it's that whole thing that Jesus says, you'll be known by your fruit. You can see, and I have seen Christian YouTubers, pastors on YouTube, and I've watched their stuff that they're doing, and I'm like, oh, you're all about the money. Just like I have seen them in the church, in my own camp and my own circles, and I'm like, oh, you're all about the money. Like that's all you're in it for. Sure, you've made it sound good. You've made it sound like it's holy, but it's not. And that's where I think this whole thing, and this is where I've loved it, where he's talking about it. And in that Anthony Padilla one, he talked about it's the difference between striving for control or working with care. Like they said the what, the why, the how, right. And it's like he's coming in with this and he's like, I wanted to control everything. I knew if I tweaked this edit slightly, if I added in the pacing here at the beginning just a little bit more, I could retain a little bit more of the audience. And if I did enough camera transitions and enough cuts and all of these things, that all of a sudden I would wind up capturing more of the audience and keeping them along more, which then meant YouTube would promote my stuff so I get more views, which means I get more money. But it's not about striving for control. In redemptive work, it's not. It's about how do I handle this with care? And that's where I saw what he was doing through this. This editing that he did and they did with this, completely different than what they've done with other stuff.
Yep.
Because there were so many times that he was putting in the elements that we would intentionally leave out. We look at it and it's like, no, we don't need that joke. We don't need that silence. But he was able to sit there and say, no, this is me. The awkwardness, the goofiness, the rawness.
Oh man.
Like that's
His
the
laugh.
stuff that, oh yeah. And he's like, I have to leave it in there because that's who he is. And
That's who he is.
He knew that people had to take him serious, but not because he's an expert at something, but because he's walking through it and he's genuine. And like, you look at it and it's like, oh man, like, yeah, I get it. I see why he's doing it. Like his heart was so clear throughout this series. And like that first time that he gets that huge, what was it, like Dr. Mike, where he does like the $100,000 donation, which is like 1 million meals right there. Yeah. And he's looking at it and he's blown away. He's thinking, hey, if we could, get 100,000 in total, so we were able to do that, like that would be amazing. But he's like, no, I mean, it blew him out of the water, and you can see him getting choked up, and you can see how it's affecting him. You see his heart come through. And that's because, in my perception of it, as I saw it, it was genuine, and you could see he really cared about the mission behind it. And it's like, okay, so the whole point was not delivering a penny to Mr. Beast. That was the packaging. Because Mr. Beast is the most popular creator on the platform, and probably one of the most popular people in the world. And he's like, if I can package my mission to help feed America, to try to make an impact into the hunger, if I can do something like that in such a way that it's got a broad appeal, how do I package that? That's kind of what he was talking about in that editing podcast, where, he's thinking about that packaging. How am I going to do that? So that's where he packages it with the Mr. Beast. And I see that, and I'm like, okay, it wasn't about Mr. Beast at all. I started watching it thinking it was going to be about Mr. Beast. Then all of a sudden, I'm invested in seeing how many meals is he actually going to be able to raise. And it was that journey, and it was the crowdsourcing that came with it, and it was because the heart was there. Like, that's the thing when I see it, I'm like, he truly cared about making sure that mission was being pushed forward. And so, and you even see that even with his daily interactions, meeting people and having them, if there's one thing you could say to the world, what would it be? Wanting to hear other people's hearts, promoting people on his own platform. Like, that was the thing where it was also kind of cool, because it was different. It was not about what am I going to get out of this. It was just, here it is. I don't know. It was, challenging.
I think it's the challenging, because there's so many takeaways from that, but how that worked was because Ryan was unapologetically Ryan.
Yeah.
If we were to take that and try and replicate that to a T, it's impossible. It's absolutely impossible. And I think that's going to be the temptation across the board, and where you were saying it's about hearts, really, because like, it's typical of God that he would have Ryan Trahan, or let's take Ryan out of this equation so we can use a wider net. Let's say Justin Bieber comes to know the Lord, Kanye West, whatever, comes to know Jesus. And there's going to be millions of people who are exposed to that message and that packaging. And it's just like God, like, hey, I'm going to take this guy over here who's been running from me for forever, and I'm going to meet him in a powerful way. And he cannot control his lips. He has to say something's happening. You can see quasi the fruit of it. And there's going to be attention, eyeballs, people who are open to an encounter with Jesus that wouldn't otherwise have been. But we're not all Justin Bieber. And if I go grab a microphone and try to sing on stage and dance around and, vacation, I'm going to run out of money quickly, because that's, I'm not going to be funded in that way. And I think it speaks to how God's designed us, because we as shepherds, and we all form different roles. I think if our heart is set on having millions of views or singing before thousands or whatever it is, I think we're going to wind up frustrated, not having been fulfilled in the purpose that God has created us to walk in. And I think finding that stride of what you're talking about, packaging and leveraging those God moments and opportunities for sure to promote the kingdom, I think that's awesome. And I think it's also awesome that we take moments like this and look at ourselves and examine ourselves and say, like Ryan, why are we doing this? What's the redemptive value? Why did he originally start us off in this process?
Right.
Because once Kanye and Justin, for you and I, do their thing, and people start searching for how to walk with God daily. How do I find Jesus daily?
Yeah.
What are some scriptures that are going to deliver me from fear? How do I overcome addictions? Well, hello.
Right.
It's good to meet you. Welcome
Yeah.
to the channel. We need to walk some things out. We all have our different roles to play in it. So I think there's a temptation for discouragement if we try to be somebody that we weren't created to be and walk in something that we weren't created to do. But the balance of that is the elusive creature of like, well, what exactly, what is that? What does that look like for me and for my channel, my ministry, my church, whatever?
Well, and so there's something I think that's powerful in what you were just talking about, and even alluding using Justin Bieber as an example. That God does use that. God loves to show up and take the popular, the well-known, and that were living for themselves, living for the world, and then use them to bring people back around.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, God uses the unknown of the world, the people that have no platform, and he elevates them and gives them a platform. I mean, you can look at Abraham alone. Like, come on, Abraham. The world refers to God as the God of Abraham.
Yeah.
Like they know him. And God himself said, you trust in me. Follow me. Look what I'm going to do. I will bless you. I will make your name great, and the whole world will be blessed for you or through you. So it was like before Abraham was even known, before he had a platform, God made and elevated his name and created that. And the same thing that Abraham had, same thing that the Apostle Paul, back when he was Saul, had, all they needed for God to be able to use them for his glory, for his kingdom, was faithful obedience. That's all they needed to do. They just needed to trust him in all their ways and just follow him, and he will take care of it. And he worked it out. And you see that throughout the Bible. People that are well-known, people that were not really known, and yet he's using all of them for his work, but it's his plan. When I see this redemptive work, honestly, I see what Ryan did, and it's kind of interesting to me because he had already played around with a penny series, but he had played around with the penny series kind of on his own terms. Mm-hmm. Now all of a sudden he plays around with the penny series on God's terms, and it's
next
propelled.
level.
Like it is just, now everybody's trying to figure it out because he captured lightning in a bottle, and they're like, how do I do that? Well, trust God. And if it's God's will and it's his timing, it's going to happen. But you got to do what Ryan did, and it was just faithfully obedient to the redemptive work aspect of it. There was something else I wanted to get into. I told you I was going to give myself a little bit of a tongue lashing here in that editing podcast, and I've listened to that one twice now. And this is why I recommend it so much because, hey, misery loves company, and after I listened to it, I was miserable, and I want you all to be miserable with me.
Oh, goodness.
So, and I mean, if you have the ears to hear, and if you're like me, you're going to get there. He talked about how redemptive work is actively serving. And I'm like, yes, like that makes sense. That's what Jesus did, redemptive work. He was active in serving. The Son of Man came and he was the servant of all. And how does he tell us to be like him? To serve one another. So it's like, okay, I get that. I understand it. And he said something about a gift. And at one point in that interview, and I didn't play it and I didn't find it and I didn't cue it up, so you'll have to go listen to it. He really said, I don't care about the views. And I don't care what people think about these videos. Because he has done what he can to provide the best gift possible. A gift that people will want, a gift that people will need, a gift that people will enjoy, and all he has to do is give the gift. If they don't want to receive it, that's on them, that's not on him. And I've heard out of my own mouth, and we've probably even said it here on this podcast, I don't care. Like, I make these videos, but I've said I make these videos for me, and I don't really care what people think. Yes, obviously I'm making them for God, but I am making them for me too. And maybe I'm saying I'm making them for God just to justify the fact that I'm making them for myself. I'll let him examine the heart on that, and y'all can call me out if you feel like it. But it's one of those that I don't care moment. Like, I do that in my sermons. I've prepared them. I've studied it. I know it's not perfect. It's the best that I can do on a weekly basis. And I have taken care with that sermon to make sure that I'm not putting a bunch of like twigs inside the hay for people to, you know, choke on and have to spit out. I'm trying to do the best I can. And that's all I can do. And once I've done it and once I've put it out there, it's like, if y'all didn't receive from it, that's between you and God. That's not me. I did my job.
Yeah.
I did the best I could to try to package this message that God has placed on my heart in a way that it will be easily consumed. And then I thought about that because he's talking about this in the YouTube context. And yes, about the packaging, thinking about the title, thinking about the overall, you know, goal of the video, thinking about the thumbnail and what that could look like, and treating each aspect of it with care. And every time I heard him say care, it's like the stewardship. So he's doing that. But then I think about that like with the gift. And here's where it got me, because the redemptive work is truly treating the work that we do as being able to help restore people. Or as I think he said in the Colin and Samir, he even kind of maybe simplified it in a way that we may not think. Without over spiritualizing, he said, this is something that adds value to people. This is something that energizes people. It encourages them. It blesses them. And I don't know how many times I've heard this with my own content, people saying, hey, you know, I miss your vlogs. I miss you making videos. They definitely, you know, they're uplifting, they're encouraging, they're inspiring. I enjoy them. Those are gifts for them. And if I'm not putting them out there, I am hoarding the content and stockpiling all the gifts and trying to keep them for myself. Or I'm just not going to give gifts. And that's the thing. It's like, man, like if I'm not doing this, what's the point? Like, why am I squandering the gifts that God has given me? Why am I holding on to them and refusing to do what he's obviously called me to do?
There's a parable in there somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure there's a bunch of
about
them.
holding on to your talents. I don't know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Maybe bury them somewhere.
Point received. Yeah, bury them back in the closet. Bury them in my to-do list. Bury them in my Trello board.
I'm just glad I'm not alone. Keep
Yeah,
going.
no, you're not. And that's the thing. It's like what he's doing. And that's the interesting thing about when you start listening to this and you hear what Ryan's doing. And it's like he's trying to create for the greater good. He's trying, and he's got a broad appeal, because the broad appeal is because he packages it in such a way. And you know what? There may be something here with talking about televangelist and TV preachers. Why do they have a broad appeal? Maybe they have a broad appeal because the packaging they put on it is actually encouraging people. Are there some that have had false doctrines and false teachings with what they've said? Absolutely. Are there others who haven't? Absolutely. And if we were to lump them all together, that's to sit there and say, well, you know, Ryan Trahan getting, 7 million views on average is like everybody else getting 7 million views on average. No, it's not. It's not the same thing at all, because he's going with a different approach. And that's where it's like holding each on their own level. So even looking at my stuff, and it's like, okay, some videos are performing better than others. Whatever. Have I done the best that I can do to put it out there? And I even think about that with my own Christian walk, even my own preaching. Like, just because I've been preaching now for, what are we going on, 15, 16 years, something like that. Like, have I arrived? No, I'm not Jesus. Like, I'm not the perfect preacher. I'm not. So I have to keep growing and I have to keep improving. And that's not by trying to necessarily do it the way that everybody else does it, but it's noticing things that other people are doing and then trying to reevaluate. Like even recently in the last few years, I noticed Andy Stanley and some of their sermon titles. I think I had heard an interview with him and he was talking about how when he's titling his messages, he was taking cues off of like YouTube and search engines. He started creating the sermon titles based on what people would be looking for.
That's why his stuff came up so often.
Yeah.
I could not figure that out. It was
Because
like
people are looking for it, and he's like, well, I'm just going to title it the way that for what they're looking for. And all of a sudden he starts doing it, and it just blows up. And then all of a sudden I'm looking at my sermons, and it's like, well, I think maybe I need to start doing the same thing. I just don't post them on the internet anymore. So it's like, but at least for the people in the church, that helped with the hook aspect of it. Because then they go in knowing, okay, you're asking this question. That's a question that I have. Hopefully, if I sit here and I listen to you pontificate for 45 minutes, I'll get the answer. Mm-hmm. And if I've done my job effectively, then they'll get an answer, hopefully the answer. And so that's where I look at this and I'm like, man, yes, have I been hoarding up and burying things and hiding them? Yes. I know I've been doing it, and shame on me for doing it. I know better. I don't do better. Wretched man that I am. It's like,
who could deliver me from
from this death. No, there's something in there that I see, and part of that I think is the acknowledgement. And I thank God for Ryan Trahan. Like, no joke. I thank God for Ryan Trahan, and that God was able to use this 20-year-old to listen and hear him in a way that I wasn't hearing him. At least right now I haven't been. And I am now able to hear God through him. Mm. That term, redemptive work. And it's like, why does that resonate with me so much? Now I know.
Well, it's fun to watch him walk it out. I got a message this morning from a friend, and she says, remember, God didn't call you to influence. He called you to obedience. And I'm sure it's a sticker off of somewhere. But watching Ryan walk that out, I mean, he's betting it on a massive scale, and it's inspiring. He's risking millions of millions of views. He's risking sponsorship opportunities behind a belief that Jesus is better. And I think God backs his play in this one. I think I saw something, not to change the subject, but I think I saw something in the comments about that. It said not to be a skeptic or something like something.
Tim J. Lee, at the risk of being cynical, it will be interesting to see if he keeps going with the redemptive tone, if it actually starts to affect his money. Hoping this is deeper than a strategy. Yeah, and yes, at the risk of being cynical, I understand where you're at. When I first heard the redemptive work, I wondered where it came from. When I heard him then share his faith, I was like, okay, now I know where it's coming from. Even though I think in one of the interviews he talked about how this isn't, like, redemptive work is not just a church term. It's something that even, I think he said, there was a university, maybe Prague University or something like that they had done a big, like, survey or research paper on redemptive work versus exploitative work and the impacts of it. And so there's evidence based behind how it actually works and how it impacts. Now, how that affects his money, if it affects his money, yes, that will be something that will be interesting. Hopefully for him, prayerfully for him, he follows more biblical principles. He start to save up in the times of plenty for those times of lean, and that way it doesn't affect him at all. And I think he's on the right path, at least with everything he's there. I think he's got he's got the recipe for success. He really does. And I think he even is defining success differently if he can keep that focus, if we can all keep that focus.
And let's just take a pause for this moment in time. And I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, because we've seen celebrities come and go, but just the magnitude of the moment, to see that God impacted a popular YouTuber who was not really looking for him, but I've seen somebody sent me the middle one. What was the guy's name? The interview, he and A Day in the Life, or
Anthony Padilla.
Anthony Padilla. Somebody sent me that last night, and so I've seen like 30 seconds of the clip, and I saved it to watch later, type of a deal. But somewhere in the interview, he's honest. He's honest with Anthony, and he's like, "Listen, I wasn't looking for any of this. I just knew that I was unhappy."
Yep.
And so I want to pause right here. Whatever he does for the rest of his life, like good stewardship, bad stewardship, falls away, whatever.
Yeah.
This is what our God does, and I think this is the pure element in this little nugget, where he grabs a hold of a pagan heart, and maybe some folks don't come the full trip to salvation. Maybe some folks, move from atheist to agnostic. Great, keep walking. Maybe they want to move from redemptive purposes, being secular as well. Sure, great, keep on coming. Because as we keep talking about this, and as that angst inside of your soul continues, we're gonna find somebody really amazing. We're gonna find a God who is passionately for you. And I think pausing here and being in awe of what God can do brings me hope. And I hope for anybody listening, it should bring hope. If you're out there, if you're laboring in the church, rest in this moment. If you're out there in the digital streets, as Diana would say, out there in these digital
streets.
Yeah. I think we can take this is a win.
Yep.
Now maybe he pulls the Kanye and flips around and everybody goes, I don't know, man, that guy's crazy. Who knows? But for this particular moment in time, God has his heart and he is making waves.
Hey, you know what? Here's the other thing. We'll even touch base on this with the Kanye and who knows what's going on with him. Come on. That Kanye album that he dropped, Jesus is King, is still making an impact because now you got Eminem promoting the name of Jesus on a remix of that thing. Like, you know what? I don't care what his motives were. God's using it for the kingdom.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm with you. Hey, I want to get to a couple of these comments here, and then we'll see if we've got any final thoughts on this redemptive work in Ryan Trahan's Penny series. We touched base on Tim J. Lee's one there that he had done that, talked about that real quick. Pastor Jeffrey Calling in the house saying, blessings,
Yay,
I made it. John Hayes was here, and he was saying, ripping back the veil is what I've been wanting, Jarrod. So that's cool. He also said, I finally just started getting caught up on the Penny series. Only through
You're gonna love it.
Day 4 though. It just keeps getting better and better. Augie in the house saying, stop talking about me like that. Just kidding. I agree. A lot of pastors or business minded and care about just the money, not the people. Yeah, there's a lot of there, and that's not to discount the need for money. We know that it's there, but we've got to understand that God's our ultimate source of provision above all of that. And he's just using money as a tool to promote his purposes. He says, I feel like that Jarrod's point about Justin Bieber is so true. So many Christians see what's in the Bible and are wanting what David, Moses, etc., and they want the crazy, amazing thing they had. And the interesting thing is that crazy, amazing thing that they have is faith.
Yeah.
Like they see God working in amazing and mighty ways. Like read Hebrews chapter 11. And all of a sudden it's like by faith, by faith, by faith, by faith. I'm like, all right.
And that what they're for though, I mean, their lives are recorded out of all the billions of people who have had a relationship with God over the course of humanity. I think they're there to inspire us, like Ryan Trahan. Yeah. He plucks one out and goes, I'm telling this story right now, and we connect with it in a way, go, oh God, we want that. So I think it's almost like he creates an invitation in some of those folks where our story connects with theirs. I'll give you this. Ryan Trahan's story has connected so powerfully with mine that like whatever he did in that Penny to Mr. Beast series, I was like, I studied him, studied his stuff to just try and find what you're calling the package and go like, there's something different here. There is something different here. I'm glad a lot more of this is coming to light, but it's like, there's something that resonates in me and I can see it in Moses. I can see it in David.
Yep. And in one of those unwritten extra biblical books, I think it's the book of Third YouTubers, chapter 876. By faith, 3. Ryan Trahan fed 10 million people. It's just like, you start to think about
that's true. That's true. An idea.
Jesus feeding thousands with a loaf of bread and a couple fish. Ryan Trahan feeding millions with 1 penny. Oh,
At some point, maybe I know,
man,
I
there's
know,
some Holy
man.
Ghost bumps on that one.
I'm reading here. I'm reading too far in, but at some point he had a thought, and I'm using air quotes here. He had a thought. He and his team had a thought about taking a penny to Mr. Beast. But those of us believers know that there's a little bit of inspiration in all of that. So God led him on a wild ride,
Yeah.
and one singular concept, redemption. Oh golly! I mean,
Right?
my mind's stripping down right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
One encounter with the Lord fed millions.
Right.
Okay.
Look what
Come
God
on, one
can
of
do.
us gonna get up and preach here in a minute. This
God.
is woo.
Yeah, it's good. John saying it's getting the truth that what we do or say isn't for us, but for the kingdom. And in the kingdom, there's only one king. That may be a great point to start wrapping up on, because I think that's the whole crux of this redemptive versus exploitative work. We are followers of Christ. We call ourselves Christians. We are to be Christ-like. And he didn't come for his own. He came for others. It wasn't about what he wanted. It was about what the Father wanted. He was obedient. And because he was obedient, now we see where the whole world is. Like, come on, he came to serve. So in that redemptive work, yeah, as vlog pastors, as Christian video and content creators, all of our work should be redemptive work. It should have that element of restoring people, encouraging people, energizing people, pointing people to the one King. You got anything else, Jarrod?
No, that's beautiful.
All right, well,
Single tier.
look out for a tweet coming from me about feeding millions with a penny. And I guess until next week, oh, by the way, for those watching and listening, if you've got anything you want us to discuss, you want the vlog pastors to mention in an upcoming episode, make sure to let us know. Otherwise, Jarrod and I are just going to keep hijacking things. So
Yep.
Until then, stay blessed, enjoy God's best, and have a fantastic week.